I hate you.
Holy shit, Danny.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mark It Down podcast, where I'm James Giasanti, that's Danny Hernandez, that's Nick Reverend Cummings, and that's Chad Big Bad Johnson. I'm not crazy. I'm just lonely. All right? Nobody joined me tonight. Everybody's gone, but it's okay. We'll get through Dynamite together. Thankfully, this was a pretty easy show to cover, so I don't have too much work to do. As our title implies, the devil himself challenged MJF. We'll get to that in what was the most interesting segment of the night, or one of the most interesting segments of the night. And the Continental Classic continues in its second round as the Gold League entered its second round of matchups. This was a fun night of AEW. There was a lot of storytelling being done. There was a lot of good matchmaking happening. Some interesting matchups that either we haven't seen before or we're seeing for the first time in AEW. So let's get to it. As the first matchup of the night, Continental Classic match number 1 is Jon Moxley, who's leading in his block, or tied for the lead in his block at 3 points, taking on somebody with 0 points, Jay Lethal. This was a very interesting clash of styles, a very interesting clash of backgrounds. I can't recall ever having seen Jay Lethal versus Jon Moxley before. If you guys have, if you've talked about it, if you've seen it, please leave it in the comments. But I very much enjoyed this matchup as Jay Lethal once again coming out by himself, not being supported by anybody from his group, as nobody is allowed at ringside during these tournament matches. Oh, before I get into the matches itself, let me talk about something that happened quite frequently throughout the night. Typically during these tournament matches, Bryan Danielson, who is himself in the tournament in the different block, in the blue block, was on commentary. And let me just say, is there anything Bryan Danielson can't do? Is there anything that Bryan doesn't excel at? Because my God, he's so good at commentary. It's not the first time we've heard it. We've seen it a couple times in AEW on Dynamite. And of course, his original run on commentary that we all really fell in love with him there in WWE with the Cruiserweight Classic. Man, he is so good at putting over his peers and making every competitor in this tournament feel like a threat. Except for one, but we'll talk about that shortly. I loved having Bryan here, eye patch and all. He looks badass. He sounded great, and it was a true pleasure to have Bryan on commentary. And let me just say, if you're on Twitter, if you're on X, wherever, and you have a problem with Bryan Danielson, get over it. You are wrong. Just flat out, you're wrong. Get over it, move on. He's the best. He was in a tough position and he made a tough decision. I'm not even going to say what it was because you guys know, but cut him a break. It's the American Dragon. It's the true best in the world. Doesn't matter what company you are. Doesn't matter what company you say it in. Bryan Danielson is the best. He made the right decision. Move on. Get over it. But yeah. Back to the match at hand, as we had Jay Lethal taking on Jon Moxley. Jay Lethal trying to pick up his first win in the Classic, and Jon Moxley trying to elevate himself to 6 points. With every win, you get 3 points. They really hammered it hard throughout the night, that if you went to a tie or if there was any reason there'd be a draw, you each get 1 point. But this did not go to that. This was a very fun back and forth match as Jay Lethal, who's technically the heel, I never know, man. I like him too much to boo him. But Jay Lethal wrestling a very smart match, a very sound technical match, going after Moxley's knee over and over. And as much damage as he did, it wasn't enough, as Jon Moxley was able to have Jay Lethal tap out to a rear naked choke. This was an excellent match. Moxley tried putting him down with the paradigm shift, with the formerly Dirty Deeds, the Death Rider, but it wasn't enough. Moxley needing to wrap his entire body around Lethal, giving him nowhere to go other than to put his hand on the mat and tap. I enjoyed a lot of this back and forth. Lethal hitting a brutal-looking corkscrew on Moxley's leg from the top rope. That was rough to see, but Moxley prevails. Moxley now has 6 points going into this tournament, continuing this tournament, but he does have a bum leg, something commentary really made sure to hammer in as we go into next week and what will be his third match against either Jay White or Swerve. Both men very adept, very smart, very willing to go after weaknesses. I'm sad to see Jay Lethal 0-2. I'm hoping he picks up a win soon, but he is serving his purpose as we talked about on the podcast last week. Moving on, we had our second Continental Classic match, Mark Briscoe taking on Roosh. Guys, I you know how I feel about Roosh. I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm always willing to give credit where credit is due, and he brought it. This was a rough match. This was a classic hard-hitting match for him. And Mark Briscoe certainly did his best to even the odds and to bring the fight back to Roosh. I love the nod to Cactus Jack, Mick Foley himself, as Mark Briscoe had Roosh on the outside and hits a running, diving elbow onto the floor. I don't care that there's padding. That padding is that thick. You are landing on concrete. It is rough, it is hard, and it doesn't stop Mark Briscoe. It wasn't so much of a back and forth, but there was some good offense on both sides. Eventually, though, after Mark attempting to hit a J Driller, Roosh was able to evade it and hits Mark with an elbow to the face and then the bull's horns, getting the 1-2-3 and his first win in the Continental Classic. So now we have Jon Moxley with 2 wins. We have Jay Lethal with 0 wins. We have Roosh with 1 win and 1 loss, and Mark Briscoe with 2 losses. This tournament playing field is very uneven. It's very interesting to see as we have 2 more weeks of interesting matchups to endure. I don't want to say endure, but to get through. And it's anybody's ball game. It doesn't matter that Moxley has 2 wins. Roosh could easily pick this up. But this was a fun back and forth, and it'll be interesting to see how Roosh does in the rest of the tournament. Going back, because I did miss this, and I apologize, there was a very good video promo from Eddie Kingston commenting on his loss in the other side of the tournament, in the Blue League, to Brody King, which is being hyped up as a very big upset. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that because Brody King is Brody King, but this was an upset considering Eddie Kingston is the Ring of Honor and New Japan Strong Champion. He talks about being how he came into this tournament very confident, being the Ring of Honor champion, being the New Japan Strong Champion, that it felt like it was the right thing to do to put his belt in the pot for what will be the Continental Classic and the Continental Championship. He's starting to doubt himself, though, after this 1 loss, and he has Bryan Danielson to face this Saturday. After that promo, Bryan addresses it while on commentary and is all fired up. He talks about having broken his orbital bone in 2 places. Yikes. He talks about how he is all fired up and ready to take on Eddie Kingston this Saturday. And, man, Death, Taxes, and Bryan Danielson putting Eddie Kingston down. Am I right, guys? Like, Jesus Christ. After that, we had a backstage segment where Tony Schiavone brought out Sting and Ric Flair. They talked about how Sting's final match will be in North Carolina for a full year. No, is it full? No, it's not full year. I apologize. It's Revolution. But Sting will have his final match in AEW Revolution Sunday, March 3rd in Greensboro, North Carolina. Guys, I don't, they talked about the history between Ric Flair and Sting, having wrestled in 1988, 2024 being Sting's final match. They hyped up how that match with Flair really helped elevate Sting. And Rick said, to his credit, he said a nice thing. Sting elevated Sting in that match. This will be certainly a very special memory and moment for Sting in Greensboro, almost a full circle moment. Don't really have much to say about this because I'll be honest, every time Rick picks up a microphone, I recoil in fear. But always happy to see the Stinger. After the Roosh and Mark Briscoe match, we had a backstage interview where AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm is being interviewed by RJ City. Everything's black and white as usual. They talk about what happened last week after the celebration. She was very upset to have been interrupted by Sky Blue, and for some unknown reason, she's suffering from a touch of the gout. Okay. We then go to an in-ring segment as finally AEW World Champion MJF comes out and addresses his upcoming match with Samoa Joe at AEW World's End. He says he does not like Joe on a personal level. Not a fan of the guy. But in the ring, Samoa Joe laid the groundwork for guys like him. Samoa Joe, who was a TNA world champion, but didn't quite do it in WWE. He created an alternative. He proved that there are alternatives to what WWE and what the typical wrestling mindset was looking for, that you didn't need to fit a certain mold to be a champion. You didn't need to fit a certain mold to be one of the best. And now MJF is doing the same. He's paving his own road. And even though Samoa Joe helped pave the road to AEW, MJF is continuing that road moving forward. He talked about his past wins. He name-dropped CM Punk. He name-dropped Cody Rhodes. He name-dropped WWE. MJF not holding back. He says that his match with Samoa Joe will be about legacy. He's going up against the final boss of wrestling one more time. And he doesn't care if his knee... Yeah, MJF came out with a cane, guys. He is in rough shape. As he announced, he's wrestling with a torn labrum. He doesn't care if his knee slides in and out. He is going to take the fight to Samoa Joe. As this promo is going on, he breaks his cane, he gets ready, he gets hyped, and the lights go out. There may have been some technical difficulties, but man, AEW did a good job of dealing with it. As the lights come back on, he is being held by multiple masked men wearing the devil insignia. One such devil member goes under the ring to grab a bat. He is interrupted by Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe making the save, clearing the ring, and saving MJF from a beatdown. This is where the technical difficulties may or may not have happened, but a message was sent to MJF as the devil presumably questions if MJF is the hero of the story. He then challenges MJF and Samoa Joe to a tag match next week, presumably with some of those devil worshippers. I don't know if that's what they're being called, but it kind of works, doesn't it, guys? Very eager to see if this is going to be the beginning of what could be the reveal of who the devil is, or at least who his followers are. Very excited to see this mystery hitting a new height and a new peak. MJF accepted the match. Samoa Joe a little hesitant to agree, but he's doing it, and we'll have this tag match next week. We then go on to the squashiest of squash matches, or it should have been, as Wardlow took on AR Fox. AR Fox attacking Wardlow before the bell even begins to ring, bringing the fight to him, flying out of the ring multiple times trying to hit his stuff. It doesn't matter, though. Wardlow is Wardlow, and despite having, I believe, 4 straight wins under a minute, this wasn't as quick. Wardlow made fast work of AR Fox, hitting multiple power bombs, inexplicably going to the top rope to hit a swanton bomb, and then a last ride power bomb that ended the match due to knockout. I am very intrigued to see if the last ride is going to be Wardlow's new finish. He hit it very well. It's not a very easy power bomb to hit, but Wardlow looked great doing it. It looked dominant. He looked dominant. And AR Fox, man, he's a roller coaster to follow, guys. He is an absolute roller coaster. But Wardlow continuing to look dominant. Not sure what the plan is for him. MJF is still there, but let's see if he gets through Samoa Joe first. We then go to a trios match as Darius Martin, Action Andretti are joined by the returning, after 8 months, Dante Martin to take on the Hardys and Brother Zay. This was a jumpy, high-paced, action-y match. No pun intended for Action Andretti. Dante Martin able to return after a vicious, brutal injury 8 months ago in Ring of Honor back in March, I believe. I'm very happy to see him back. I'm hoping that the Martin brothers are able to stay healthy at the same time. It never seems to be something that they're able to accomplish. But I fingers crossed for these kids. But fun back and forth match as the young trio of the Martin brothers and Action Andretti are able to get the win as Dante slams Zay for the 1-2-3. This was the right win. I am always going to be sad to just see the Hardys be enhancement talent, but that is essentially what they fall into. But very happy to see Dante Martin back with a dominant win, and hopefully this boosts them up because I know Darius and Action have been doing a lot in Ring of Honor. Maybe this boosts them up a little bit to be worthy challengers for the Ring of Honor 6-man championships. Moving on, we had a backstage segment where Top Flight and Action Andretti were confronted by Penta, El Cero Miedo, and El Hijo del Vikingo and Commander, setting up a trios match, presumably for next week. A lot of good lucha things are going to happen that match. I'm very excited for all the flippiness. I may have to take a Dramamine just to make sure I don't get sick watching it, but it's going to be awesome. We then moved over to a TBS championship match as Julia Hart defends against Emi Sakura. Now, guys, I'm excited about this match because, as commentary pointed out, Julia is bringing back the House of Black rules, the house rules, where there is a 20 count on the outside, not a 10 count, no DQ, and the opponent gets to pick a stipulation. Now, for this matchup, for this instance, Emi decided no submissions allowed. Or should I say, you cannot win by submission. Sorry. And despite that rule being in effect, that did not stop Julia from putting Emi in her heartless submission and making her tap out. The ref couldn't allow it, but it doesn't stop Julia from climbing the top rope and hitting a moonsault for the win. This was a very weird matchup because by all accounts, Emi is still a heel, so lots of heel versus heel action tonight. But this didn't really quite go the same way the main event went, which we'll get into. But the ending was a little weird for me. I don't know what Emi was trying to accomplish, but she rolled to her side and to her back as Julia was hitting her moonsault. It didn't look super clean the way she landed it. I don't know if maybe she had her bell rung and she wasn't really aware of what she was doing. I don't know if she was trying to get into a better position for Julia. Either way, it looked really awkward for that landing, but it seems both women are okay. Emi has always done a great job of putting over younger talent and feeling like somebody who could take them to their limit. And Julia continues to look strong in what is now her second defense of the TBS championship. We then go backstage to an interview with Mariah May. You remember Mariah May. She's Tony Storm's biggest fan. And she might be a fan of RJ City, as she called him, what was it, a great connector of people? She then walked into Tony Khan's office. I don't know if this means they're setting her up to get a contract. I'm sure she already has one, but very interesting to see where this goes. It was a little bit of an awkward segment, kind of quick. I don't know what RJ was trying to convey. He looked very uncomfortable, but I'm still intrigued by Mariah May. She brought up Stardom and her past there. So anything Tony Storm related seems to be going very well. So I'm still on board. We then had an in-ring segment where TNT champion Christian Cage attempted to make peace with his longtime best friend, the Rated R superstar, Adam Copeland. Initially, he's flanked by what was, I think, 5 or 6 security guards. One of those guards being Man Scout. Guys, if you don't know who Man Scout is, he is one of the most fun Northeast independent wrestlers I've ever seen. I've seen him in a few different promotions. I was very happy when he signed with AEW. And I know it's mostly a backstage capacity. I don't care. Love Man Scout. Keep on keeping on, man. But yeah, eventually Christian is pleading with Adam to come out. Adam it takes a minute to eventually to come out, but eventually he does. Christian has security go away, and he tries to say he's sorry. And no, it's not what we think. He's not sorry because Kill Switch has been taken out. He's not sorry because Nick Wayne has been taken out and he's all by himself. He's sorry because he went on a road trip and he became all self-reflective. We've all been there. We've all driven down the dark road at night and think about life. No, we haven't. That's a Christian Cage thing. It might be a Canadian thing. I don't know. But he talks about his longtime friendship with Adam. He talks about how Adam was raised by a single mom. How his own father, Christian's own father, helped raise Adam, treated him like one of his own sons, disciplined him like he was one of his own, picked him up and brushed him off, that he's one of his biggest fans. He still is. He talks about how Adam's mother passed away a few years ago, but before she did, she talked about wanting to see Adam and Christian have one last tag run together. So he says, let's do it for her. Touched the heart. It really pulled on the heartstrings, guys. But it was all a facade. Shocking. As he then tries to go for a cheap shot on Adam with the title, but Adam is too smart for that. He goes, hits a low blow on Christian. He then tells him that next week in Montreal on Dynamite, he is coming for that TNT championship and he's going to take it home with him. But before he leaves, he has one last message for Christian Cage. Something that, let me tell you, did not get censored on TV. And I think I could do it uncensored here, but cover your ears if you don't like the salty language. He tells Christian Cage to go fuck yourself. Delivered with such power, with such vengeance in his voice. It sounded great. I was excited to hear it. Very excited to hear that they messed up on the censoring. Great moment. I don't know what happens next week. I don't know if Christian Cage retains. I don't know if Adam Copeland gets the TNT title. But I am excited with how the story is paid off. Or is paying off. I was one of the first people to say I didn't want to see these guys wrestle this early. I wanted it to go a long while. I wanted the feud. I wanted them to stay away from each other, if I'm going to be quite honest. But every interaction they've had has been great, even if it has been a little extreme on some weeks. But I almost feel like the beatdown Adam delivered last week onto Killshot or Kill Switch. Killshot? I don't know. It's Luchasaurus. I don't care. And Nick Wayne would have been better after this segment. Christian bringing Adam's family into it certainly explains him being so angry and being so elevated, something that we didn't really quite understand last week. But I'm cool with it. I'm happy to see the story elevating itself, and I'm very excited for the matchup next week. But moving on to our main event, we have Swerve Strickland taking on Bullet Club Gold leader, Jay White. It is always an interesting dynamic when you have two heels going against each other, especially two heels like Swerve and Jay White. Jay can sometimes play things a little goofy. Swerve has outright been a monster lately, but both men are very smart competitors. Bryan Danielson back on commentary talking about their styles, putting both men over. Jay White being a very smart defensive wrestler. Swerve Strickland being an absolute force to be reckoned with. He can vouch for that, having wrestled him last month. Great matchup between these two guys. I know I've done it before, but I will do it here. This felt like a chess match. This felt like two world-class thinkers going back and forth, trying to outdo one another, and the crowd was eating it up. They are still very much pro Swerve. He has gotten over in a big way thanks to Hangman in that feud. There was lots of counters here as I was shocked, actually, as Jay White was able to kick out of the house call and a swerve stomp at the 2 count. That's how Swerve got his 3 points last week. By the way, yeah, Swerve had 3 points last week. Jay White having 3 points last week. So one of these two competitors is going to have 6 points and be tied with Jon Moxley in the lead of this block. Great back and forth. Jay White kicking out, like I said, of the swerve stomp, hitting the Blade Runner on Swerve, who rolls out of the ring, kind of reminiscent of his matchup with Hangman at the pay-per-view very recently. As White attempts to go for a second Blade Runner, Swerve counters with a pin, rolling him up for the 1-2-3, leaving a shocked Jay White alone in the ring, very frustrated, still stuck with 3 points, as now Swerve Scott has 6 points, matched for the lead with Jon Moxley. A matchup that is still to come in this tournament, whether it be next week or in 2 weeks. Going to be very exciting to see one of the ultimate good guys in AEW, Jon Moxley, even if he, is kind of a bad guy at times, taking on both of these very, very different matches for him. But guys, this was Dynamite. You haven't been very talkative with me, and it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. But that's okay. I will persevere. I, too, am 6-0 in life right now. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm tied. Either way, I'm quite happy. But guys, what did you think of Dynamite? Did you enjoy the show? Did you enjoy the wrestling? Did you enjoy the segments? Did you enjoy me? Quite frankly, that's what I care more about than anything else. Nah, I guess I want you to enjoy the show too. But yeah, guys, this was the Mark It Down podcast. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like on the video. Hit subscribe. Check us out. We cover WWE usually. We cover Impact, soon to be TNA. We cover Dynamite, AEW every week. And we cover all the major shows, all the major pay-per-views. And we love talking wrestling with you guys. So please join us next week. Join us for our next video. And if you want to deal with us in other ways, check us out on social media. Check us out on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you find your funny memes, wherever you find your funny stories, we will be there. So go check us out. We love you. I love you. My name is James Gisanti. This is the Mark It Down podcast. And please watch wrestling and have a good night.